Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Since it's a Sunday, we would have the static part of our discussion. And the subject that we have chosen is medieval history. Let's look into the first question. Arrange the following dynasties of Vijayanagara Empire in chronological order. Tuluvas, Sangama, Aravidu, Saluvas. The answer to this is 2413. Let's look into the explanation. The first dynasty that we have when it comes to the Vijayanagara Empire is Sangama, followed by Saluva, followed by Tuluva, and finally what we have is the Aravidu dynasty. Who was the founder of this Vijayanagara Empire? We have Harihara and Bukka, who are the founders of the Vijayanagara city on the southern banks of Tungabhadra. They made Hampi as the capital city and they had served under Veera Ballala III of the Hoysala king. Who was the famous kings when it comes to the Vijayanagara Empire? What we have is the Krishnadevaraya of the Tuluva dynasty, who was the most famous king of the Vijayanagara Empire. According to Domingo Pace, a Portuguese traveler, he says Krishnadevaraya was the most feared and perfect king there could possibly be during that period. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to Chola Empire, which of the following statements is or correct? The founder of the Chola Empire was Rajaraja. During the reign of Rajendra I, the whole of Sri Lanka was made part of the Chola Empire. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why? That is because the founder of the Chola Empire was not Rajaraja, instead it was Vijayala. So kindly remember, the founder of the Imperial Chola was the Vijayala. Why is it called as Imperial Chola? That is because when you look into this particular kingdom, it not only had its presence felt in India, in the southern part of India, but it had expansion in other countries as well. Let's say for example Sri Lanka, or let's say for example Malay Peninsula. In all these places they had their footprints, which is why they are called as Imperial Cholas. And one of the greatest rulers of the Chola Empire happens to be Rajendra I, who was the son of Rajaraja. And during this particular reign, the whole of Sri Lanka was made part of the Chola Empire. His famous military enterprise was the expedition to North India. The Chola Empire crossed the Ganges by defeating number of rulers on its way. Rajendra I defeated Mahipala of the Pala Empire. To commemorate the successful North Indian campaign, Rajendra I founded the city of Gangaikonda Cholapuram and constructed famous Rajeshwaram temple in the city. He also excavated a large irrigation tank called as Chola Gangam on the western side of the city. So kindly remember, he happens to be one of the greatest rulers that ever ruled the Chola Empire. He was also a great patron of learning and was called Pandita Cholan. Now let's look into the next practice question. Battle of Chanderi was fought between Baba and, is it Ibrahim Lodi, Rana Sanga, Daulat Khan, or Medini Rai? The answer to this is Medini Rai. Let's look into the explanation. We have two important Rajput rulers. One happens to be Rana Sanga of Mewa, who was a great Rajput warrior. The other happens to be Medini Rai. But when it comes to the Battle of Chanderi, this was fought against Medini Rai, who was also another Rajput who fought against Baba. So in the year 1528, Chanderi was captured by Baba from the Rajput king called as the Medini Rai. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following is or correctly matched? We have the officers and the duty they performed. Amir-e Majlis organized the meetings of royal family and special celebrations. Sir-e Janda, officer of personal bodyguards, Jandas to the Sultan. Amir-e Barbak, who happens to be superintendent of the royal court. Which of them are correctly matched? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Now let's look into the explanation. Who are the ministers who control the administration under the Delhi Sultanate? We had Wazir, who happens to be the Prime Minister and Finance Minister. Diwan-e-Result, Foreign Affairs Minister. Sadar-us-Sudar, Minister of Islamic Law. Diwani-Insha, Correspondence Minister. Diwani-Arrest, Defense Prince or the War Minister, and Qazi ul Quzar, who happens to be the Minister of Justice. And helping them were number of other officers called as Barit-e-Mamalik, who was the head of the Information and Intelligence Department, Wakil-e-Dar, who was in charge of royal household, Amir-e-Barbak was the superintendent of royal court, Amir-e-Hajib kept an eye on all the visitors to the court and presented them before the sovereign according to the court etiquette. We have Amir-e-Majlis, who organized the meetings of royal assembly and special celebrations. And finally, we have Sar-e-Jadanda, who was the officer of personal bodyguards to the Sultan. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following causes led to the defeat of Rajputs against the Turks? Turks had the advantage of possessing elephants. The main weapon of the Rajputs was their sword, whereas the Turks depended on archers. The growth of the Ikta and Khalisa systems enabled the Turks to maintain large standing armies. Which of the statements led to the fall of Rajputs against the Turks? The answer to this is 2 and 3. Why? That is because when you look into the first statement, Turks did not have the advantage of pursuing the elephants. That is because they had a very good cavalry. They had huge number of horses which helped them in attacking the Indian Rajputs. So the possession of elephants is not with respect to the Turks, but it was in reference to the Rajputs. This also became a liability when it comes to the administration or against the wars for the Rajputs. How? When it comes to the horses, they are swift and agile. You would be able to move from one place to another swiftly, and the archers who were mounted on this particular horses also became an advantage for the Turks. But when it comes to the elephants, they were not able to move agilely, they were not able to move in a swift manner, they were not able to move in a proper way, and when the situation went haywire, these elephants also became a liability for the Rajputs. So the advantage that the Turks had was they had a very good cavalry system, they also had a very good built archery system as well, and when it comes to the Rajputs, they relied on the swords, which was very good when it comes to the close battles, but when it comes to the far off battles, it was archery which always helped. So the second statement is correct, the first statement is wrong. And when it comes to the third statement, the growth of Ikta and Khalisa systems enabled the Turks to maintain large standing armies. When you look at the military strategies of the Rajputs and the Turks, they were totally different, and the ideas of implementation were different as well. How? Let's say for example, when it comes to the Rajputs, they employed a military system where you had the central wing, you had the left wing, you had right wing. All these wings of the army or the military were employed simultaneously, but that was not the same when it comes to the Turks. How? When it comes to the Turks, they employed what is called as the frontal system. So the Turks used a special strategy where two units, one unit called as the advanced unit, the other is what is called as the reserve unit. So when it comes to the advanced unit, they were employed initially, they were able to see what were the advantages of the particular opposition, they were also able to see what were the weaknesses of the opposition. Only when they realized the weaknesses of the opposition, we have what is called as the reserve army which was employed. So what we have is two types of army. One is called as the advance guard, the other is what is called as reserve army. The advance guard was employed to find out what was the strength and the weaknesses of the opposition. On finding it out, what we have is the reserve army which will be employed so that the opposition is completely decimated. Now let's look into the next practice question. The English commander who had attended the coronation of Shivaji with presents from East India Company was F.F. Staunton, Francis Rawdon, William Thorne, or Oxenden? The answer to this is Oxenden. Let's look into the explanation. When it comes to Shivaji Maharaj, he happens to be one of the greatest rulers that India has seen. It was he who brought about massive expansion when it comes to the Maratha Empire. Let's look into some of the factual data with respect to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. He was the great Maratha king who was born on 19th February 1630 at Shivneri Fort in district Pune in the present state of Maharashtra. Shivaji was born to Shaji Bhonsle, who happens to be a Maratha general who held the Jagirs of Pune and Supe under the Bijapur Sultanate. Shivaji's mother was Jijabai, a pious woman whose religious quality had a profound influence on Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. The origins of Maratha Empire can be traced back to a series of rebellions led by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj against the ruler of Bijapur Sultanate and the later Mughal Empire. Based on the principle of Hindavi Swarajya, he carved out an independent Maratha kingdom with Raigad as the capital. In 1674, he was crowned as Chhatrapati of the new Maratha kingdom after successfully defending most of the Mughal incursions. These are some of the important factual data when it comes to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements about Battle of Bani Hatti. It was a confrontation in the Deccan region between the forces of Krishnadevaraya of Vijayanagar dynasty and the four allied sultans of Bijapur, Bidar, Ahmednagar and the Golconda. The battle was fought at a site called as Penukonda. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is none. Why? That is because this was a confrontation in the Deccan region. Yes, that is right. Yes, it was between the Vijayanagara Empire and all these sultans. Yes, this is also right. But it was not Krishnadevaraya, but instead it was earlier Ramaraya. So this battle of Bani Hatti is also called as the Battle of Talikota. So it did not happen in Penukonda, but instead it occurred in a place called as Talikota, which is currently in the state of Karnataka. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements is or correct? Mughal state derived the bulk of its income from agricultural production. Kudkashta were non-resident cultivators who belonged to some other village but cultivated lands elsewhere on a contractual basis. Pahikashta were residents of the village in which they held their lands. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is one only. Why? That is because when you look into the second statement, Kudkashta were the residents of the village in which they held their lands, but when it comes to Pahikashta, these were the non-resident cultivators who belonged to some other villages but cultivated lands on a contractual basis. So what is Kudkashta? These are the kind of peasants. What did they do? They cultivated on their own lands, so they possessed their own lands on which cultivation took place. Then we have what is called as Pahikashta. These are once again peasants and they were working on a contractual basis. They did not have their own lands. Instead, they migrated to other villages, worked on plots which are not their own but someone else's property. So this is what is called as Pahikashta. Now let's look into the next practice question. The terms Cornish, Chahar Taslim, Zamin Bose is related to, is it paintings, officers of the Mughal Empire, musical instruments or forms of salutation? The answer to this is forms of salutation. What do we mean by it? Let's say we have a king. Then there are people who go to the king. They put out all their grievances. So before they put out their grievances, they have to respect the king who is seated in his crown. So what exactly happens? This is a way of salutation, or it is a way of showing respect to the king. It can be by prostration, it can be by folding hands right in front of the king or bending their body right in front of the king. So these are the form of salutations, that which is given by the people with respect to the king. So the forms of salutation includes Cornish, Chahar Taslim and Zamin Bose. So the highest form of submission is what is called as Sijda. Sijda here stands for complete prostration. Now let's look into the next practice question. In medieval India, the designations Mahatra and Patikila were used for military officers, village headmen, specialists in Vedic rituals, chiefs of craft guilds. The answer to this is village headmen. This happens to be a previous year question taken from the year 2014. So when it comes to the designations of Mahatra or Patakila, they stand for the village headmen. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.